Hello and thank you for joining me for today's Junk Journal with Me session. I am once again using the Junk Journal January prompt, and I will have them in the description box below. And today's prompt is watercolor, which is awesome because if you've seen any of my previous spreads, you know that I like using watercolor as a background. And for this spread, I'm going to try a dripping method. But before I do that, I wanted to add some more scraps of paper first to create a more diverse background and to give the watercolor some more creases to run into, which will make a nice, just a more interesting background. So here I'm just choosing some scraps that I think will work nicely on this spread, and now I'm going to just start gluing these pieces down. And as you can see, I'm kind of making a cluster. I'm not putting them all over the page. I'm just concentrating on the left lower area of the spread mostly. I like working in clusters. I don't like putting things randomly all over the page. I just think it makes it a bit more dynamic by keeping some areas more free and some areas more dense. Okay, so I'm done with that, and now I'm going to start with my watercolors. And you can use any watercolors, and I'm using a water brush, but you can just as well use a regular brush with water. And I'm just going to choose some colors, and as usual I go for some earthy tones, and I start with this beige. And all I do is I just start at the top and add water so that it starts dripping down, and I just keep adding on the top and squeezing the brush so that the water comes down, and I kind of help it along by shaking the book a little bit, and I'm catching the drops at the bottom so that they don't go on my surface or that they don't stain the pages underneath, because this is a smaller page than the ones behind it. So I just keep doing that. And now I just decide to put this paper towel on the bottom so that it doesn't stain the previous page. So now I'm just choosing a little darker beige to just add a variety of values of color. But I do kind of like to keep it in the same tones. You can hardly see the difference actually, but there's a tiny bit of difference there in the shade. So same thing, I'm just gonna try to make it drip. And I encourage you to try this if you've never done it. Nothing really can go wrong. Now I'm just giving it a quick dry in between so that the colors don't mix too much when I add another color. So now I have this kind of like a purplish, and it becomes quite light because I'm watering it down quite a bit. Just keep adding color, keep adding water, making it drip. It makes its own design, and of course each one will be different, which is the beauty of it. You never know what it's really going to look like until the end. And then I thought I would try like a pinkish color, and I see right away that I don't like that at all in combination with the other colors, so I just dab that away. As long as it's wet, nothing really happens. So then I try to decide on another color, and I go for this like medium brown tone. And just keep doing the same thing. It's running down nicely. So I think at this point, yeah, I'm done. So I'm just going to give it another quick dry. I'm just wiping it from the middle so it doesn't stain the other pages too much. And now I'm just gluing down the parts that came up because there was a lot of liquid, of course, running in between those. I'm just putting the clamp over it to hold it shut while the glue is drying. Okay, and so that's my background. That's all it took. And here you can see what it looks like when it's dried, and it looks really yummy. There's variations of tones, and I just love this so much. It's so much fun. So then I found this stamp that I've had for quite a few years, and it has some butterflies, and unfortunately I don't remember where I got it from. I got this before I knew about AliExpress, so I really don't remember where I have it from. I'm so sorry. So I decided to use my brown, my vintage photo distress oxide for this, and I wanted to put something underneath on the left side because I only wanted to stamp half the image, so I wanted the other half not to go on my writing board underneath, so I just put a random piece there. So I'm just going to stamp that on that side, just half of that stamp. And it didn't turn out quite as nicely as I hoped, but it was okay. You can still see that it's butterflies, and I'm okay with that as background. It just adds a little more interest. So then I was thinking, okay, what else can I add as focal points? And I thought, well, since I'm doing butterflies, I had some printouts of butterflies. So I'm just gonna cut some of these out and see which one I like from the color scheme. So I thought maybe one of these two, and I actually would have loved this one with the green, but I just thought it was a bit too small. So I decided to go for this bigger one. And I like that it had blue because I don't have a lot of blue in a lot of my spreads because it's not one of the colors I tend to go for. I like more the warmer and earthy tones. So, and I thought maybe I should add the second one, but I actually didn't like that. So I just want to have that as my main focal point. And now I'm just trying to choose some tags. And these are from AliExpress. I got them recently, and I will link those below. I'm just trying to see which one I would like best on this page. So I did like this blue, and I did like this dotted one, but then I decided not to take the dotted one because the dots, they were just a little bit too much. So I stuck with the blue, and I was trying to see how I could position those two. I wanted to keep them together. And so I'm just trying to see how I could make that work. And while I was doing that, I was thinking about what could I put on the tag, and I just looked up in the internet the meaning of the symbol of a butterfly, and so the international meaning, so there's 4 words that are described, and one is life, and another one is, oh, I can't read it on the screen because it's too small when you edit. Yeah, so the first one is change, then hope, life, and the last one is endurance, but endurance didn't fit on the tag. It was too long, so I left that one out, and I'm okay with just having those 3. So, and this stamp, by the way, is a stamp that you can find the link for in the description box of my last December AliExpress haul. I got it there. And now I have a stamp set, and I bought this at Michael's on my vacation in the States last summer, and I want to say it's from Finnabair. I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of think it is. And it has various sizes of butterflies on there, and I'm using my jet black StazOn ink for this. And I didn't want to put them right on the page because I wanted, so two reasons. I wanted them to stamp nicely, and I was afraid if I would stamp it directly on the page they wouldn't stamp well, which is because it's uneven. And the second reason is I wanted to be on a paper where you would see the background through, but where you would still see the butterfly. So a paper like the one I chose worked really well, and it's kind of like a parchment paper, you know, something that you can put in the oven. So I really like how those turned out. And now I'm just cutting around those, not too accurately. And I didn't realize that the ink takes longer to dry on this paper, so I end up having all the ink on my fingers. And I did smudge the butterflies a little bit, especially when I started gluing them down, but it was okay. It wasn't enough to make me do it over. So I just went with it and stuck those down. And as for placement, I'm choosing the opposite side of where the focal point is to keep your eyes moving from one corner to the other, and at the same time to still have some areas that are more free where your eye can still rest. Because in case you've seen my previous spreads, I like having like clusters of things, but I also like to keep areas a little bit more free, just because it is more pleasing and calming for the eye than if you have things scattered all over the page. I mean, this is still a pretty busy page, but I think it's right on the border of what for my eyes is still kind of pleasing, although I also really like spreads that are more calm. So now all that's left to do is to put the date down. I'm again using the same stamp, and I already rotated the letters and numbers to form January 13. And I'm using the brown ink this time so that the black ink would still stand out with those words. And that concludes today's spread. So give it a try. It's a lot of fun, and enjoy making your own spread. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.